Next presentation will be made by Leontine Segal, which will present a statistical approach to infer molecular cloud conditions from multimolecular line analysis of the Orsed Nebula.
Thank you, Luca. So yes, I will share you in this presentation my research work that I carry out during my PhD among the Orion-B consortium and under the supervision of Jérôme Petit and Antoine Roueff. And actually, this work was dedicated to the development of a statistical method to estimate kinematics, physical and chemical properties of giant molecular cloud, and this from the analysis of multiple molecular lines. And as I will show you, we build and use this approach to analyze the Orsed Nebula that is located in the Orion-B cloud. So first of all, our motivation for studying giant molecular clouds such as Orion-B comes from the fact that it is in this kind of object that star forms. So if we want to better understand star formation, we need to better characterize the underlying physical process. And thus to estimate her properties. So namely, we wanted to estimate the volume density of the most abundant species in the cloud, so the molecular hydrogen H2, and also the kinematic temperature of the gas that measure for us the agitation of the gaseous species. But all this by keeping in mind that we cannot go out there to afterward check if our estimations are accuracy and is meaningful and trustful. So this is from this lack of ground truth that arise the need to develop a statistical tool to not only estimate those physical properties of interest, but also to provide a quantification of the confidence that we can have in our estimation if we want to fully interpret them. But another challenge that we had was from the nature of the observation that we have. Actually, if we look at the Orion-B in the optical range, you see that the cloud is actually dark. So if we want to get information, so photon from the gas, we need to observe the cloud in the radio domain. So for instance, that the photon that we measure here is not emitted by the most abundant species in the cloud H2, but from all the other species that compose the cloud. So for instance, the carbon monoxide CO or HO+, but compose the clouds in much smaller proportion. So for instance, the structure that you can see here is obtained by looking at the frequency of three different isotopologue of CO. And this is why we want to get the most information from the cloud that we can have, that the Orion-B cloud have been observed over a large frequency bandwidth, enabling us to detect around 20 different molecular species, but leading also to a massive dataset made of around 1 million spatial pixels, and if each of them composed of around 200,000 frequency channels. So in front of this huge dataset that we want to analyze, the statistical method that we want to build is also required to be quite simple to be automated. So yes, so as I said previously, to start with, we focus on a small portion of the Orion-B cloud, the Orsed Nebula. So why did we choose to analyze and to start with the Orsed Nebula? Actually, because this portion of the cloud perfectly well illustrates how much complex and rich are information coming from multiple molecular lines. So you see here in the visible domain, the Orsed Nebula. And if we observe the same portion of the sky, but at different frequency corresponding to 3 isotopologue of CO and 2 of HO+, we see that even if we look at the same region, the photons do not seem coming to the same region along the line of sight. So for instance, if we look at the emission coming from 12CO, you see that it's very extended, which suggests that the photon come from the very outskirts of the cloud that correspond to lukewarm gas and also a very diffuse one because it's constantly irradiated by UV photon coming from nearby stars. But in the opposite, if you look at H13CO+, you see that the emission is very much more compacted and actually come from a place that we call dense core. And it's very important region for us because it's in such a dense and cold core that the next generation of star will form. But it's also the most difficult one to reach and to characterize because it's actually the most shielded region in the sky, in the cloud. And between these two very extreme behavior that we have in a molecular line, we find a diversity of different molecules that seems to probe an intermediate gas condition. So for instance, you see that the emission coming from C18O is much more filamentary one. So in other terms, if we look at in the same time all this molecular line, it seems that tell us that the gas condition along the line of sight is changing. But all this information is mixed. And what we want to do is to unmix that. And more particularly to be able to extract the one coming from the dense core. So let's illustrate how we do that on 1 pixel only. So we zoom in 1 pixel in the Horsehead Nebula, and these 5 spectra that you are seeing here, so 5 molecular line, is coming from the 3 thioisotopolog and 2 of HCO+. So what we see is that if we want to relate this observation to the gas parameter that we are looking for, we assume, so we noted X, so this line, we assume that it depends on a set of unknowns, so physical, chemical, and kinematic parameter that we are looking for. So we see that it depends on the kinematic temperature, the volume density, but also what we call the Coulomb density, which is the quantity of a molecular species integrated along the line of sight. But we have also kinematic properties such as the centroid velocity that correspond to the radial velocity of the cloud along the line of sight. So it's resulting to where the line are centering around. But also the FWHM, which allow us to quantify the turbulence within the gas. So in the line spectra, it results in the broadening of the spectra. So, and if we want to estimate those parameters from this observation, we actually need to model enabling us to simultaneously reproduce all this observation, even though we saw that earlier the photon coming from each of them do not necessarily come from the same region and thus depend on different gas conditions. So to take into account potential heterogeneous property of the gas along the line of sight, we model it as composed of 2 different environments. So an inner layer, a core, surrounded by an external layer, an envelope. And all these 2 environments are totally independent and characterized by its own vector of parameter that we introduced previously. But from the point of view of the observer, the photon can coming from 4 different sources. So you have the foreground of the external layer, the inner one, from the background of the external layer, and then from the cosmic microwave background, which in our case are our radio sources, continuum sources. And then to derive the quantity of photon that is emitted by the cloud, we use the radiative transfer equation that is actually a balance between the photon emitted by a gas layer, so given by the intensity function, characterized by the excitation temperature of the line, and the quantity of photon that can have been absorbed by the gas when the photons are traveling in the gas. So it's depending on the opacity profile function, and you see it's a function of the opacity. And those two required radiative quantities, those excitation, temperature, and the opacity of the line in function of a given physical parameter, we use the radiative transfer code RADEC developed par Van der Tak et al. To derive it. And then to kind of generate this equation and to fit to our multi-layer model, we take into account all the contribution of the other molecular line by taking into account the fact that photon emitted by a layer can be not only absorbed by itself, but also by the layer in front of the observer. Yes, and the game now at this stage is to find the parameter that the best fit to the data and according the criterion. And to link with the previous presentation that we had before, we heard the term of Bayesian approach is when your the vector of parameter that you are looking for is assumed to be random, and to characterize it, you as it had been said, you search for a posteriori distribution. But in our case, in deterministic framework, you assume that you have that your vector of parameter have a given value, and you're looking for estimate them. So in our case, we choose to maximize the criterion. That is, we maximize the likelihood. So you see that it's lookalike a chi-square in our case, where our measurement model is Gaussian, but is ponderate by not only the additive noise dispersion, but we made a sort of trick to this to take into account the fact to limitate the confidence or the SNR that we have in certain line. Because you can see that in such case, for 12CO, we get a much more quantity of photon than other line. For instance, H13CO+. And this will give more weight to this kind of line than other. So, yes. And to make, yes, a challenge here is that according to the model that we build, we actually looking for a solution in a 40-dimensional space physical parameter. So to make converge indeed our algorithm, we did a two-step optimization. So we start by looking a raw estimation of theta in a grid with by doing a grid search, and after that we refine this estimation by doing a gradient descent. So thanks to the model, we now fitting well the observation, but moreover we are also able to decompose the contribution to the total flux, to the total emission line reconstruct to the different layer of the cloud. So, for instance, you can see in this pixel that most of the emission from 12CO come from the very front layer of the cloud, while in the case, for instance, of C18O, you see that most of the emission coming from the inner one. So, okay, it's just on for one pixel analysis, but if we iterate the same very processes without injecting any constraint, spatial constraint between pixels, we can obtain the same thing, but we can obtain a map of parameters. So what you are seeing here is a contribution in a percent of for the 12CO line and the C18O line, the contribution of each layer to the total emission line reconstruct. And you can see that in this case, this kind of map allowing us to check some intuition that astrophysician can have about a molecular tracer. For instance, you see that indeed, as observations show, over 85% of the emission from 12CO line come indeed from the external layer, and as deep as you go into the cloud, this contribution decreasing. But in the case of C18O line, it's totally different. You see a very much more symmetrical contribution of the line. So where most of the half of the line come from the inner, so the core of the cloud, and the external layers, so both the foreground and the background, have a very balanced contribution. So, but all this analysis is only an analysis of how do we well fitting the data. But it's not a sufficient condition to know if a model is useful or not, because we especially want to know if the underlying physical estimation that we have are truthful and meaningful. So to do that, we need a criterion to, as I said previously, to provide the quantification of uncertainty. And we use the well-known Cramer-Rao bound that actually is variances on the lower bound to the variances of any unbiased estimator that you build. So, which means that, so in our case, you have a vector of parameter that you are looking for. In this case, the Cramer-Rao bound is defined as the inverse of the information of the Fisher information matrix. That is defined. You see, we find again the likelihood that we used previously, and in this case, so we have a 40 parameter that we are looking for. The matrix, the CRB is a matrix, and if you get the diagonal parameter of this matrix, you actually get the lowest variances that you can have in each estimation, in each parameter of your vector of unknown. And if you're able to build an estimator whose variance reach this bound, you know that, so it's called an efficient estimator, and you know that you extract all the information that your observation contain. You cannot wish to build a better estimator in terms of accuracy. So it's very useful and powerful result, but it's also you to provide an error bar on your estimator. In our case, because the maximum estimator is Gaussian. So at this stage, you can use the CRB to filtering out your estimation and have a quantitative critter to say, beyond this precision, I will not interpret my result because I not trust them. So now I can show you the underlying parameter that we use to build the observation, so to feed the data. So what you are seeing here is for the external layer, you have the density, the volume density, and the kinetic temperature, and here the result for the inner layer. And when pixels are missing, is actually pixels that we are filtering out according to the CRB criterion. So for the density, we retain estimation with so a factor, 2 order of magnitude on the density. And in the case of the temperature, we have a factor of around 1.2. So now we can analyze it. So what we see for the external layer, it seems that the model estimates a very homogeneous and a smooth gas condition. So you have the density estimated around 10 power 4, 10 power 4, and a lukewarm gas, so with a kinetic temperature between 13 and 40 K. But in the case of the inner layer, it's more difficult to analyze because you see that the condition seems to change very sharply from a pixel to another. So to help us in our interpretation, we use a complementary observation. So the AV, so the visual extension that is somehow proportional to the total matter that is found along the line of sight, but also the temperature of the dust, so the solid phase in the cloud. And what we see is that in the region where the density have been estimated to the highest, so 10 power 6, locally match to the region where the AV is also the highest. And more particularly in this dense core, you see that the temperature, the kinetic temperature has been estimated near to 12 K, which match also to the gas phase, to the solid phase, sorry. But if we look at the external layer that surrounded this cold phase, we see that the model estimated a much warmer phase. So in this case, it seems that the model allows us to detect 2 different phases, so a very cold and dense core surrounded by a much warmer filament. So and mix the information that we are initially have. Yes, just another result that I want to share with you, because we heard previously that chemistry is very important to understand and to investigate in star formation. I want to show you what we can have in terms of abundance, about result about abundance. So, as I said, that we also estimate colon density of each species. So you also able to derive the total colon density of your molecular cloud. So in this case, we focus on C18O molecular line. And from that, you are also able to compute the mean abundance. Because you also estimate by assuming a typical, an isotopic ratio with the most species, with the most abundant species in the cloud, so the molecular hydrogen. And what you see here is a hole, a kind of depletion in the gas phase of the C18O line in the region that we previously identified as a dense core. So what we can do is also to represent this exactly same mean abundance, but in function of the visual extension, so the total quantity of matter along the line of sight. And we find with this kind of histogram a behavior that has been namely reported by Tafela et al. And Kramer et al. The fact that as AV increasing, so as much more you have at low AV, actually you have a huge depletion in the gas phase of C18O, because the molecule is photodissociated. So it provided to form. So we have a lack of C18O. And as more as AV, so the material is increasing, the molecule is actually shield itself with the other molecules. So the proportion of C18O increasing and reach the isotopic ratio 1. But you see here a new depletion at very high AV. And this is correspond in our case at this value to this dense core. And we saw that we estimated a very low temperature, low kinetic temperature. And it's matched to interpretation that Tafela et al. Made about depletion in the that of the molecule onto the dust, the dust grain that are frozen at this kinetic temperature. So yeah, to finish, I just will say you that all this results and also investigation about the kinematics, so the rotation maybe of the pillar, have been reported in this paper. And moreover, I do not go deepest in detail, but we also investigate how much we can make a complex our model under to retain a good accuracy in our estimation. So, namely, we was in radioastronomy, it's often the case when you're dealing with a calibration error. So it's made it can bring a complexity in your data in your model. But also, yes, I will just finish on the point that every result that I show you was obtained with a very particular model, a sandwich one. But actually, we develop all the model such as it could be used by other and be very flexible. So it's a very generalizable multi-layer model, and you can inject all constraints between layers that you want in your model if you want to use it on your dataset. So thank you very much, and I will please to answer your question.
Thank you, Leontine. We have time for some questions.
Thank you for the talk. Very interesting. I had a question. If in your radiative transfer code, does it also take into account the scattering into the line of sight?
Yes, exactly. It's very an approximative one radiative transfer model where we only take into account the photon coming from the observer. So we do not take into account scattering processes. Yes.
could that be a significant part of the flux we observe, or
Actually, I do not know, because I do not know in which kind of physical process the scattering is important. What you have in mind?
I was thinking of photons emitted from somewhere else in the cloud that are scattered by the dust into the line of sight. So you might think that they are in that line of sight, but technically they're from somewhere slightly. Yeah.
Maybe it's for optically thin line, no? Because if we are optically thick, scattering process is maybe less significant. I do not want to say mistake, but it seems that it was sufficient in our case, but maybe we have to make complex if your observation telling to do so.
Yeah, thank you. I was just asking because I also don't know.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Another question?
Very interesting technique. I was wondering, in this case, you are assuming that all components, they are all filling out the beam, right? Is it possible to modify or implement an option where they are not fully like covering the same beam? For example, if you have a compact source, like a disk in a big beam where all the other emission is much more extended, then the coupling is not exactly the same as you have it, right?
So you said that, for instance, if you have very compact and small pixel, and that you actually measure a flux coming from the background and no signal.
So the tau, when you do the connection between the different layers.
Okay.
So at this point, all the layers, they feel the beam.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Is it possible to have something that is more compact, that doesn't fully cover the beam in the same way as the other components?
Cover the beam in...
beam filling fraction is not one for that component.
Yes. So if I well understand the question, it's actually a question that we ask ourselves, because yes, we have a one filling factor, and it seems that for instance, in the font, in the photo dissociation font, the author said the result was we was quite uncertain, and we do be careful to interpretation in this region, because we know that we're mixing some signal, information and noise, and yes, so we do not, yes, in this kind of region, we have to be careful, because we have a filling factor of 1, yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I was wondering, your results in the end, they look really smooth spatially.
Okay.
And I was wondering if, but maybe it's related to the first question. There is nothing in the model that takes spatial information into account, or there is maybe, or where?
No, and actually, so your question is very
well, some of them they look smooth.
Yes.
The other ones maybe not.
No, so indeed, we do not have injected any information between pixel to another, and actually it was very wanted, because the model looked very simple to model the complexity of the Horsehead Nebula. So we wanted first to detect if just by itself the model will show strange results. So the fact we really wanted not to inject anything, to not be biased by a smoothing effect or kind of stuff. But maybe this kind of approach of use information, spatial information that you have, is totally would be totally possible, and argumented is possible. You can inject information, but we didn't do this.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe a small other question. At the beginning, you mentioned the dimensions of your problem as a difficulty.
Yes.
Would it make sense to do some sort of dimension reduction first, like PCA or whatever? Or you will lose totally the interpretation, I guess.
We do not explore this thing because actually the problem that we have in a 14-dimensional space, as we saw, is the local minima issue, and I think it's because of the data that we use. So, for instance, we often see that we have degenerescence of the volume density between 10 power 5 and more because potentially our model was not sensitive to highest volume density because we use molecular tracers that are sensitive to highest volume density. So we wanted to diagnose this kind of local minima that we have, and we didn't want it to decrease the dimensional space. I don't know if it's answer to your question, but
well, it was just not really a question, just wondering if
Okay.
Because usually in statistics we used to say that even though your dimensions are high, but the data themselves, they don't live in such a high space. They live in a smaller part of the
Okay.
space.
No.
So the trick is to reduce the dimension before analyzing anything.
Yes. Okay. Indeed, we do not do that because yes, well, a grid search was enough to diagnose where we have degenerancy. Because it was useful to have insight of which tracer we have to use if we want to raise this degeneracy. But I think it can be done if we want to simpler to better make converge the algorithm. Yes.